Charlie Sheen's bomb tossing since the suspension of production of 2.5 Men last Thursday has gone largely unanswered by his targets at Warner Brothers Television Studio.
Okay, your passion is coming off as erratic
right.
to people.
Well, you borrow my brain for 5 seconds and just be like, dude, can't handle it. Unplug this bastard. Yeah, because it fires in a way that is, I don't know, maybe not from this particular terrestrial realm.
That's when Sheen went on a rampage on the radio.
You sound like Thomas Jefferson.
Well, I'm not Thomas Jefferson. He was a no, but I dare anyone to debate me on things. Debate me on AA right now. I have a disease, and I cured it with my brain, with my mind. I'm cured. I'm done.
But it soon turned to hatred aimed directly at the show's co-creator, Chuck Lorre.
That it's nothing inside of deplorable that a certain Chaim Levine, yeah, that's Chuck's real name, mistook this rock star for his own selfish exit strategy, bro. Last I checked, Chaim, I've spent, I think, close to the last decade, I don't know, effortlessly and magically converting your tin cans into pure gold. Well, you've been warned, dude. Bring it.
Two and a Half Men began airing on September 22nd, 2003 on CBS. The show was created by Chuck Lorre and Lee Aronson. Chuck had previously co-created the show Dharma and Greg, which aired on ABC from September 1997 until April 2002. He also created 2 other shows before then, Grace Under Fire and Sybil. Two and a Half Men stars Charlie Sheen, John Cryer, Angus T. Jones, Conchata Ferrell, and Holland Taylor. The show is about a successful jingle writer, Charlie Harper, his cheap suckling brother Alan, and Alan's son Jake living all under Charlie's Malibu beach house after Alan's ex-wife Judith divorces him. After that, Alan and Jake seek refuge at Charlie's house, and Charlie allows them to stay. Throughout the series, Charlie finds himself attracted or in relationships with many different women, as we go through Charlie's hectic life of alcohol and sex. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have Charlie's brother Alan. Alan on the outside is an anti-Charlie, a struggling chiropractor who appears to be barely making ends meet. Of course, once Judith finally divorces Alan, he is slapped with a $3,875 a month child support payment. As the series goes on, Alan is slowly revealed and branded as a cheap, freeloading, uptight asshole. Then again, who can blame him? I literally believe he is one of the most unluckiest people to ever exist in a sitcom, and a lot of the time, it's either his fault or just Alan being Alan. Alan's son Jake at first was just an obnoxious 10-year-old, then slowly over time as he aged, it appears the writers have slowly dumbed him down. Now yeah, Two and a Half Men isn't for everybody. I mean, there could be someone out there who prefers Young Sheldon or The Big Bang Theory or any of the other shows he's created. But give it a try and see if it's your thing. I personally recommend it. At the moment, you can find it on NBC's streaming service Peacock. Yes, a CBS show produced by Warner Brothers on NBC streaming service. Or you can find it on IFC, TV Land, and Paramount Network if you have cable. Now, the thing I want to talk about is the infamous Charlie Sheen mental breakdown of 2011. Now, it's been over 10 years since he was winning. However, we will get to that in a little bit. Now, Charlie's been in Hollywood allegedly since 1973. According to IMDb, his first role was an uncredited role in Badlands, which actually stars Charlie's father, Martin. One of his standout roles happened in 1987 with the movie Platoon. The next year, he starred in another successful film, Wall Street. Then in 1991 would be the first time he would meet up with his future Two and a Half Men co-star John Cryer. His TV career didn't really begin until 2000, when a controversial decision would replace Michael J. Fox's character on the sitcom Spin City, after Michael J. Fox announced that he would be leaving to focus on his family, himself, and finding a cure for Parkinson's disease, which he's had since 1991. Now, of course, Charlie's had guest roles on other television shows or TV movies, but this is technically his first sitcom role as a leading actor. A year after Spin City had ended, Charlie of course played a leading actor role on Two and a Half Men. Now, Charlie for many years had suffered from alcohol and substance abuse. In May of 1998, Charlie had suffered a severe stroke after overdosing on cocaine. After those events, he later entered a rehab clinic, which seemed not to help for long.
Then, of course, you give in, check a news site, and read that your co-star, Carlos Irwin Estevez, has been arrested in Aspen, Colorado for spousal battery. Alarmed and freaked out, I texted him, "Dude, my thoughts are with you. If you need to talk, give a call. If you've got bigger problems, call me when you get back." Although it seemed pretty clear my friend and colleague wasn't sober anymore.
In January 2011, production of 2.5 Men was halted and put on hiatus, while Charlie underwent a substance rehab program from his home, this apparently being his third attempt at any rehab program within 12 months. Since, according to Reuters, said that, quote, Sheen was hospitalized following a 36-hour cocaine-fueled party. Back in October 2010, the NYPD had removed Charlie from his suite at the Plaza Hotel, after he reportedly caused about $7,000 in damages. It was also alleged that he was with pornographic actress Capri Anderson in the suite. This turned out to be true. According to Capri, she had said that Charlie was verbally abusive and terrified that he was going to injure her when Charlie went on his, quote, rampage. Apparently, according to the NYPD, Charlie had admitted to not only drinking but using cocaine on the day the event occurred. Charlie slowly over time worsened in physical and mental health. He appeared as a worse version of his own sitcom character. About a month after production had been shut down, CBS had canceled and took a loss on 4 episodes of 2.5 Men Season 8. Why would they do that? Well, in reality, production was set to be resumed on the remaining 4 episodes for Season 8 of 2.5 Men, until this happened.
Why did you decide to, basically unleash yourself here on this broadcast?
Because I'm just, I don't know, why give an interview when you can leave a warning? If you love with violence and you hate with violence, there's nothing that can be questioned. And people say, you're going to work through your resentments. Yeah, no, I'm going to hang on to them, and they're going to fuel my attack. And they're going to fuel the battle cry of my deadly and dangerous secret and silent soldiers.
You sound like Thomas Jefferson.
Well, I'm not Thomas Jefferson. He was a pussy. Well, you don't look like you're having a lot of fun. I'm going to hang out with these two smoking hotties and fly privately around the world. It might be lonely up here, but I sure like the view, Alex. And if you're a part of my family, I will love you violently. If you infiltrate and try to hurt my family, I will murder you violently.
Charlie Sheen had gone on the Alex Jones Show and went off the goddamn rails. He had gone off on the show's creator, Chuck Lorre, calling him a clown and a charlatan. Somewhere thrown in there, he boasted that he was an F-18
bro.
with poetry at his fingertips with an army of, quote, Vatican assassin warlocks. He then, at some point, went on to call Alcoholics Anonymous a, quote, bootleg cult. Apparently, around a year before, Charlie had complained to co-star John Cryer about Chuck Lorre, saying that he didn't like on how he ran on set. He apparently didn't mind Chuck leading in the writer's room, but didn't want to deal with him on set, saying that he wanted Don Rio, best known for creating Blossom, to run the set instead. John said in his memoir that,
I knew that 2.5 Men without Chuck Lorre would suffer.
And to me, rightfully so. He was suspended on February 28, 2011, with Warner Brothers stating that he was, quote, dangerously self-destructive and made, quote, comments poisoning key working relationships, and, quote, and appears to be very ill. Apparently what had also happened was that Charlie had only did his home rehab program for about a week, and to him, he was ready to return to work. However, Chuck Lorre, a recovering alcoholic, knew that a week at at-home rehab wasn't enough and wouldn't sign off on ramping up production. However, after many interviews with many different news organizations, and with his condition worsening, CBS and Warner Brothers were tired of it, and on March 7, 2011, they fired Charlie Sheen. And later, Warner Brothers had banned him from entering the studio. He had continued to do interviews with many different media outlets. He made statements saying such things as he was a warlock with tiger blood, and of course, had Adonis DNA. Oh yeah, and then he eventually joined an online streaming website called Ustream. Apparently they offered him something.
No, I'll pause it. I don't give a fuck. Hold on. Let me see if this thing even has speaker, because this is freaking, built by trolls. Keep that in mind. Phones were built by trolls.
And eventually joined Twitter to ramble on whatever the hell or post his stream links. His Ustream web series, Sheen's Corner.
Hello? Foiled by a piece of plastic covered in light buttons. Yeah, I'm right here. Fuck, I hung up on him. Well, looks like the show's been canceled again.
His web series on Ustream was certainly unique, to say the least. He most of the time either appeared with his assistant, Rick Calamaro, or one of his goddess girlfriends, Natalie Kenley. Watching these streams for me, it's pretty hard. Seeing someone completely have a mental episode and just appearing to be insane streamed out to the fucking internet, it's just fucking crazy to me. It wouldn't be for long for corporations to take its advantage, including the previously mentioned Ustream. The very next day after he was fired, Live Nation Entertainment had offered him a merchandising deal and a licensing contract, and additionally would do some live concerts. The merchandise created would include mugs, t-shirts, and even badges with one of the most fascinating words in the English language. Winning.
Wow, winning. Duh. Winning. No, winning? Anyone?
I'm by winning. I win here and I win there. Now what? Winning.
And of course, by this time, Charlie looked like he had aged 25 years. The hardcore drugs and alcohol certainly didn't help. For example, here's a comparison. Here's a scene from an episode of 2.5 Men Season 7. And here's one from Season 8. Just a little off-topic note. There were some people out there who were genuinely concerned for Charlie. Those being the 2.5 Men cast, crew, or else. There were some people out there who didn't want to make fun of Charlie Sheen for doing whatever the hell he did on the internet. Some recognized that this was completely a mental episode. For example, former late night host Craig Ferguson. I liked how he took the situation. It's typical in late night to make fun of some stupid event or some stupid celebrity doing something stupid, and in certain situations, it can be funny. But in this case, this is completely different.
In the 18th century, there was a mental hospital in London. It's been there for a very long time. It started as a priory in I think the 12th or 13th century. Anyway, it's called Bedlam. And what happened was, in the 18th century, people used to go along and pay money. They would pay a penny, and they would look through the peepholes of the cells, and they would look at the lunatics, and they would laugh at them. And they thought that laughing at the lunatics was fun, and they were willing to pay a penny for it. And I think people look at that now and they think, gosh, people were heartless and cruel back then. And I don't think they were heartless and cruel. They didn't know that mental illness isn't that funny. I freely admit I've done jokes about this stuff on this show. I mean, you know, I'm a desperate man in a tight spot, and I have to do what I can to get through an hour of bad TV every night. But I'm watching it now and I'm thinking, nope, stop. And it's starting to me, I'm feeling a little bit like I'm paying my penny and looking through the hole, and I'm not comfortable with it anymore. I'm not comfortable with it. So, by the way, this should be a message to anybody. You know, when a late night host goes, actually, you know what? Ooh, that's not, then you know that maybe it's time to do something about it or get some help or something. Anyway, it's not my business. What I'm saying is this, I'm not going to do it tonight.
And this is honestly incredible. He was one of the highest paid TV actors. Not only then, but still one of the highest paid ever. By 2011, he was making about $1.8 million an episode to just come down like this. His next effort was to, quote, go to war with CBS and Warner Brothers. Again, he went on to do more interviews saying that CBS owes him an apology while licking his feet. Seriously, that's a quote. He eventually filed a wrongful termination lawsuit against Chuck Lorre and Warner Brothers, and eventually this lawsuit was settled on September 26, 2011. That same month, Charlie was presenting an award at the 2011 Emmys, and before he announced the award, he had something to say.
Before I present Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series, my old category, I want to take a moment to get something off my chest and say a few words to everybody here from 2.5 Men. From the bottom of my heart, I wish you nothing but the best for this upcoming season. Now on to the Emmy.
Okay, good for you. That same month, he was set to be roasted on Comedy Central, on the Comedy Central Roast. Some of the roasters being Seth MacFarlane, Jon Lovitz, William Shatner, Amy Schumer, and Mike Tyson. Ironically, the roast aired on the same night as the premiere of Season 9 of 2.5 Men.
Actually, there's a lot of Sheen on TV this evening when the show airs. Tonight on 2.5 Men, they're actually having Charlie's pretend funeral, believe it or not. There's no need to switch over, though. Just wait a few months, you can probably see the real thing.
The roast itself would bring in roughly about 6.4 million viewers, which, to this day, has been the highest rated roast for Comedy Central. The next year in 2012, he started a show for FX called Anger Management, based off the 2003 film of the same name with Adam Sandler and Jack Nicholson. I have not personally seen the show, so I cannot give my opinion on what I think about it. However, another YouTuber named V Infuso has so far done 2 videos on anger management. One being Charlie Sheen's comeback and the other one being titled Anger Management Was Just the Charlie Sheen Show. Both are pretty interesting videos. I recommend giving them a watch. You can even watch his video on the day that 2.5 Men died. I recommend you give them a watch. In 2015, he was asked to be brought back in the finale of 2.5 Men.
There had been so many rumors that you were going to be a part of the final season, you were going to make appearances. Tell us what's going to happen.
Not the final season, I was willing to be a part of the final episode. So I'm just waiting for them. I've heard not the best news, but whatever. Things in this business change overnight, you know.
So you're being optimistic.
Yeah, of course, yeah. If they want me, I'm there. If they don't, I get it. No hard feelings. It's not the end of the world. And it's, you know, what I left behind there, I'm very proud of, and what they did after I left that's on them. And whatever happens, happens.
But he later rejected because of the whole idea. What was that idea? Well, Chuck would answer that in his vanity card for the final episode, saying this. Charlie throughout the years had been in and out of controversies. For example, when his ex-wife Brooke Mueller attempted to file a restraining order against Charlie to keep him away from his kids, he tweeted out, @Brooke Mueller, "Happy B-Day, Brooke. Why don't you blow out this candle?" What does he mean by that? Well, this. Quite amusing, isn't it? Of course, the 2009 incident where he was arrested in Aspen, Colorado for spousal battery. Then he was sued in October of 2014 for assault and battery by a Los Angeles dental technician who said Sheen punched her in the chest during an office visit. Basically, just a bunch of crazy, insane shit, and most of this happened prior to 2016. However, in November of 2015, he had a live sit-down interview with Matt Lauer on Today and revealed that he was HIV positive. He had apparently been diagnosed 4 years prior, so sometime in 2011. God damn, a lot of shit happened in 2011. After this, it seemed Charlie got better in a way of cleaning up, and it's seen throughout his interviews post-2016. According to his father Martin, in a June 2021 interview on People the TV show, he said that, quote, "He's come back, thank heaven, and he's healthy, and he's working on a book now," later adding, quote, "He's very involved with his family, his children and grandchildren." Charlie has apparently been sober since 2017, and in 2019, he gave up smoking. In an interview with Yahoo Entertainment, he talked about the 10-year anniversary of these events occurring. He says today that, of course, he deeply regrets what he did 10 years ago, saying that, quote, "I'm so glad that I traded early retirement for a fucking hashtag," end quote. He said if he had the chance to go back in time, he would take some of the opportunities that Warner Brothers and Les Moonves had given him. Quote, "There's a moment when Les Moonves and his top lawyer Bruce were at my house and they said, okay, the Warner jet is fueled up on the runway, wheels up in an hour and going to rehab, right? My first thought was sort of like, really? There's some comedy value to what my first thought was." Sheen says, "In that moment when I said, oh damn, I finally get the Warner jet, that's all I heard. But if I could go back in time to that moment, I would have gotten on that jet." And it was that giant left turn in that moment that led to, you know, a very unfortunate sequence of public and insane events. In the same Yahoo article, the interviewer or the writer mentions on how this is compared to something like the Britney Spears meltdown, where it was gawked, and with Charlie Sheen, it was met with amusement, and says that today something like this would be treated differently, now that we know more about mental health. Quote, "I was really a guy that needed someone to reach out and say, hey man, obviously there's a ton of other shit going on. how can we help? Quote, and instead they showed up in droves with banners and songs. All types of fanfare and celebration of, you know, what I think was a very public display of a mental health moment. It is also mentioned in the same article on how Charlie isn't the biggest fan of people bringing up the events of 2011. However, he has learned to accept that. His words will continue circulating for some time, but he hopes that they don't. But also mentions that he's not offended that they're still talking about it, but what was an intensely difficult time in his life. Now, at the end of the day, Charlie has made mistakes. A lot of fucking mistakes. Terrible and horrible ones at times. But I'm hopeful for his future, and I hope he can keep on the path of sobriety and reclaiming his life. Now, on to what happened to 2.5 Men after Charlie left. Well, the final 4 to allegedly 8 episodes of Season 8 were thrown out and CBS took a loss on it. With Season 8 ending the way it did, it truly makes me wonder how the storyline would have been only if Charlie hadn't done what he did. In an interview with Chuck Lorre, he discussed about the replacement of Charlie Sheen. He talked about how he didn't know what to do next, saying that he thought the show was done for. He said that he had issues on finding someone who could play someone as flamboyant with elegance and charm like Charlie. In John's memoir, he mentions the same thing. Then, Chuck said he received a call by then CBS president Les Moonves, who mentioned to him about meeting Ashton Kutcher. Chuck had said that he was too young for the part, however, he was convinced to go meet with Ashton. At first, he didn't know what personality or character to give him. He had thought of an idea to make him some type of actor with an entourage, but then he retracted his pitch. He later came up with an idea based off Ashton himself. Seeing him involved in social media and internet companies, Chuck thought to make him more like a Mark Zuckerberg and less of an entourage. The next question was, how do we make this character appealing? Chuck said this.
And for better or worse, my thought was, let's make him heartbroken, because, you know, sometimes that's the part of your life you have so little control over. So,
if you ask about any 2.5 Men fan what they thought about the, quote, Ashton years, you would most likely get an overwhelming majority saying, it's really bad. Not a lot of people liked the change. It was an entirely new character meant to replace someone completely different. Ashton no doubt is a great actor, but in 2.5 Men, his character is no Charlie Harper replacement. He's just too damn nice, and I get the idea of making him heartbroken and that's really all he has going for him. He's just a Mark Zuckerberg-esque guy. In my opinion, I can watch him if I can completely discredit seasons 1 through 8 ever happening. The show after season 8 did and tried many things, whether it be Charlie's long-lost daughter, who's lesbian, and who's basically a Charlie Harper 2.0. This idea wasn't that bad at all, and really a funny idea to add. Or we have where Alan and Walden marry to adopt Lewis. Okay. I would like to at some point rewatch the seasons 8 and onward until the final, since it has been a while since I fully watched them, and I guess I'll see what happens. Alright, that's pretty much it. Or is it?
Chuck simply didn't deserve that vicious unloading. I was convinced there was something Charlie wasn't saying, but he seemed genuinely contrite, and eventually the real reason behind the meeting became clear. He wanted to revive his relationship with 2.5 Men and give some closure to the fans. That amount of bridge repairing, I thought, would require a congressional appropriation and the Army Corps of Engineers. My sentimental give-a-guy-a-chance attitude liked the idea of Charlie returning, but my practical side knew it was close to an impossibility. But there was a supreme irony in Charlie's wistfulness that day, in the sense that he knew he'd lost something. That's because the demands he was making in the last days, Chuck off the show, Bruce Rosenblum off the lot, Don Rio taking over as showrunner, all eventually happened of their own accord. If Charlie had just kept his fucking mouth shut, he'd have gotten everything he wanted.
No, I'll pause it. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Exactly. Hold on. Let me see if this thing even has speaker, because it's freaking, built by trolls. Keep that in mind. Phones were built by trolls.
You okay?
by winning. I win here and I win there. Now what?
Charlie Sheen is not a warlock, for a warlock is a wise person who understands the ways of the spirit world.